I'm Jaclyn Johnson.
And I'm Marina Middleton.
And this is WorkParty, a podcast that's part work
and part party.
WorkParty celebrates a new generation of women who are redefining the meaning of work on their own terms and having fun while doing it.
In this podcast, we are diving into all the areas of being a working woman: mind, body, and business. No topic is off limit.
Real talk and hot takes. Think of us as your internet work wives. This is WorkParty,
the podcast.
Wait, where's the champagne?
One of the hardest and most important parts of being a founder is building your team. Today, we're unpacking how to structure your org chart, make your first hires, and evolve from a scrappy solopreneur to CEO. So, coming up, we have our 7-figure founder retreat in Savannah, Georgia. We're so excited, completely sold out. It's going to be unbelievable. One of the top topics, team problems, team growth, hiring, firing, the whole thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people expect that the team conversation ends when you get when your team grows or you're more successful. It never ends.
No, it gets longer and harder and more convoluted.
It's harder, and I will tell you, out of everything that I experience as a CEO, managing and building a team is very, very, very hard. Which is really funny because you were like, hey, you can do that.
Truly, with both companies. I was like, one thing.
Oh, you told Angeline the same thing?
Yes. I said, I don't want to manage a team. I don't want anyone to report to me. I'll work with everyone, obviously. Yeah. I'm not not talking to people. I want to cross collaborate, but I will not be the person that they go to or report into or anything like that.
Yeah, it is. It's really, really hard. And again, it's very expansive. I feel like I've learned so much about myself and how I communicate and or lack thereof, or lack of communication. It's really, really interesting. But let's talk about early days, who to hire first. Founders often try to do everything, which I will say, me and you are very similar about this, where it's we know how to do everything in our business. And I believe that they should, right? Founders and really good entrepreneurs know how to do everything. They probably aren't going to be the best at everything. They don't have to master everything, but they know how to do it. So what should they let go of first when it comes to early stage?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a few different things. One is it's going to be really hard to let go of everything. But what I would do is write down at the end of the day, what are the tasks that are integral to you doing them? So that's probably I'm thinking about my agency and when I started, I have to do the sales.
Yep.
I can't just hire a salesperson to do that, whatever. I'm doing the proposals, I'm doing all these things. The things that I don't have to do is scheduling my time, running around doing the admin stuff for onboarding, things of that nature, sending invoices. That's a very easy task to hand off, but takes up so much of my time.
Yeah.
I also remember at the beginning, I was cutting checks for payroll, every Friday or whatever. And that would take forever. I was literally writing the checks out, doing all that stuff. So I think the first hire should be something that is easily taken off your list without you having to provide a lot of oversight and insight. And I think typically that person, at least for me, was always an assistant. And what would always happen is that assistant would then be so involved in my life, learn so much, figure out what they liked about what I was doing, and then would go off and become another role within the company. And I did that very successfully. And I think that actually worked really, really well for a long time. But I would also say it depends also on your budget, right?
Mm-hmm.
So oftentimes when you're hiring and you're building a business, you don't have a ton of budget. So you're going to hire someone junior. But I actually think long term, there is value in bringing on someone, if you can, more mid to senior to kind of come in, because then that really takes the workload off your plate and you can really build and mold and do things like that. One thing I think is interesting I think has fundamentally changed is when I was looking for a job or hiring at the beginning, it was the goal is to keep that employee forever, right? You're I want to hire you and then you're good and then you stay with me forever. And that was always what it was, right? Our moms, dads, whatever, they would have jobs and they would have jobs forever.
Yeah.
And I think now it's we live in a freelance world. We live in a fractional marketplace. People don't want to do anything forever because everything changes so quickly. So the reality is I think most employees are going to be with you a year to 3 years, I would say, max. If someone makes it past that, amazing. Obviously, you want them and you're able to keep them and keep them engaged and things of that nature. But when you're thinking about time and investment, you also have to think about that side of it as well. And I think having those transparent conversations with people, has always been like a really good thing for me. Like, what are your goals? What are you looking for? And you don't have to like pretend to be like, I want to work my way up here. Like in 2 years, do you want to start your own company? Do you want to like level up and go somewhere else? Like, because the reality is also, you're not going to give them the massive raise that another company is because they need that talent. So people have gamed the system, right? Like every 2-3 years, they leave for a bigger paycheck. So what does that mean for employers?
I will tell you, when I get a resume and every 2 years they're at a new company, I'm not interested in hiring them. And I am so impressed. Even when I get on a call with a brand, I'm like, oh, how long have you been there? And they're like, oh, 8 years, 6 years. I'm like,
How?
wow.
Why? Tell me everything.
But like, it's like, I haven't heard that
in a long time. Yeah.
How did you start? What was your role? It's like so interesting to me. And I think like one of my, I was gonna say toxic traits is like, the thought of my like current team leaving makes me so sad because I love them so much. Like I say it on every interview, like they're so hardworking. And in my head, again, like at Yahoo, people were there 12 years, 15 years. I'm like, what do you mean you're going to leave in a couple? To go fucking where?
Yeah.
Like you're not leaving me. Like we're building this together. You know, like that's how I think, especially because a startup, it's like everybody works very closely, but you can't think that way. And because it's not about me.
I think you learned this lesson early on.
Yeah, I was not happy about that. Yeah.
But like Marina, like, you know, cares so you care so deeply about the team. You invest so much time and energy into them. And I had to have this like very hard conversation where I was like, we are disposable to them, like at the end of the day. And that's okay. Like, I think it doesn't, like, again, there's these hilarious memes that's like, anyone who calls you a rock star or family, like run, right? And I think that's very real, right? Like, I think we do an amazing job of nurturing people and like, you know, bringing them in and giving them a path for growth and all the things. But at the end of the day, you can't control anyone. And like life, all these things happen. And like everyone who says, oh, it's business, it's personal, it's not personal, it's business. It feels so personal when someone leaves.
Yeah. No, my first person that left took me the fuck out.
I
was out for like a week crying.
I was like, breathe.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, oh my God, I failed. Like, again, from both sides, right?
Yeah.
When you let someone go or someone leaves or everything seems so personal, you know? And that's very interesting to me. I love that you called out like hiring an assistant first. Like our assistant first is now operations manager and someone that grew and they own a lot of the operations of the business, things that do take up a lot of your time, and it's rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. I will say like revenue generating roles are very, very important for the business. Like it again depends obviously on your model, but like I assume all businesses are trying to make money and sell. And so whatever that is, like hiring someone to support doing that is really important. In my experience, when it does come to sales, a director role has been a little bit harder. Like you need someone that is like senior, junior, that is like scrappy and hustling and accomplishing things and doing things. So I would say like early on, it's so important to build people that are doers. Like I just need doers.
Yeah.
I've thought of all the things. We have all the strategies. I need someone that is actually executing to kind of like just move the needle every single day.
And a lot of people don't like to do stuff.
No,
so.
No, that's a hard one. Everyone, it's interesting. And I was talking to Gretchen about this, our leadership coaches. Everybody wants to do strategy. What people don't realize is there's actually a lot of work that goes into strategy, and there's a lot of data that you got to figure out, and there's a lot of like time that you spend like breaking things down and creating different scenarios. People don't understand that. They think a strategy is like, I think we should post 2 times a week. That's not a fucking strategy.
Yeah. That's a task.
That's a task. Great, do it. To do what? What's the goal? You know, so I do think that there's this misconception of like, I am a strategic X, Y, and Z, or I'm this creative, or it's like, you just got to get the shit done.
Yeah. Who's doing the stuff?
Who's doing it?
Usually you.
Yeah.
It's so true. Like, I'll just do it. But like, I think that's also the thing. I will also say like for a business like Create and Cultivate, where yes, we sell productize things in a way like, yes, you can buy a pop-up. Yes, you can whatever. But we also sell anything.
Yeah.
It's extremely challenging to find a salesperson that can do that well, where you're like, oh, amazing. You're launching something cool in New York. Well, guess what? Fashion Week's here and we can take over this spot and we can do this. And you have to be both creative and sales. Like those people are extremely hard to find, very expensive, and oftentimes have like jobs at bigger companies where we're not going to match like that insane sales salary that they're getting. And like, they also have teams underneath them.
Mm.
And like sales is just, it's really, really challenging.
I was going to say that. And obviously you've been an entrepreneur for a very long time, where for me, I felt like when I was at Yahoo, roles and responsibilities were like such a thing. Like and I understood it, but hear me out here. You would like get a sheet and this is the 6 things that you only do. That is it. And then there's someone else that does these other 2 things. And there's someone else that does these other 3 things. And it's very split and you wouldn't touch anything else. A startup is so different.
You got your hands in everything.
We're all stuffing bags. We're all doing sales. We're all doing outreach at some point. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a very interesting concept. Of course, there's clear roles and responsibilities, and I would love to talk through org chart and like kind of how you structure it, because you did teach me something early on of like how I was building out originally. But like, I do think that yes, roles and responsibilities are really important, but there is this like very collaborative environment when it comes to a startup. Like all hands on deck and you all have one goal that you're going after. But curious in terms of org charts, a couple different ways that you've structured org charts. What has worked, what has not?
One of the big lessons I learned early on was around this idea of single line defense. And essentially what kept happening was I had people in every role, right? So I had marketing, production, sales, accounts, graphic design, whatever. So I had like one person in each of those roles as I was growing. And then basically what would happen is someone would leave and then I'd go patch the bleeding and be like, okay, well, I'm going to do marketing now. And then it was like, okay, perfect. So I'm marketing and CEO and I'm doing both. And then I got to hire someone and then I bring someone in and then production would leave. And I'd be like, okay, now I'm over here and I got to go build this stage. I'm going to go build this. And it was like, I was constantly like that pipe that keeps like bursting in different areas. And I remember my CFO saying like, or COO saying, you're a single line defense. Like you need a double line defense, meaning you need tiered hierarchy in those roles. So for instance, if a marketing director leaves, you still have, let's just say, a junior marketing associate underneath her that can pick up the slack until a new director of marketing comes. If your junior producer leaves, your senior producer takes over. Like there's still people in play that will take over the roles and responsibility. You're still, patching stuff up and figuring it out, but like you're never going to be pulled completely out of your day-to-day to go handle something else and have to like, figure out like what they were working on. How far did they get in it? Digging through their email box. Like, did they actually send that email? Like, it's a nightmare. And obviously, as you know, when people leave a company, they're usually checked out far before that. So you're picking up a month of slack than having to hire someone. And it kind of is this like thankless process. I do think like the whole 2 weeks notice thing is kind of bullshit. Like,
hate it.
It's such a nightmare for everyone involved, like besides the employee. Like they're just like, see ya, and like they have no consequence. I really wish there was a world, and a few employees did this with me and I really appreciated it, where they said, I am going to start looking for a role. I want to give you as much as possible so you can help fill that role. And then obviously they can train them, which is like the dream scenario. Like, I'm not going to be mad at you if you tell me this isn't a fit for you and you're looking for another job or X, Y, and Z. That to me is so helpful. And I will sing your praises.
I was just going to say that.
And I will say like the girls who left on good terms with Create and Cultivate, to this day, I give them new business. I've hired them for like I work with them still, like always. Cause I'm like, yeah, great. And then there are people who gave no notice, literally no notice, and thought they were just like baddies leaving the office. And in my head, I was like, you're not playing the long game, girly. Yeah. And I don't know what those girls are doing. They have not popped up. I'm like, and I'm like, it's just, and also it's funny because a few of them went and started their own company. I'm like, I can't wait till someone does that to you and you see how painful that is after investing in someone and doing all with them. But it's like, it is what it is. It's like, it's part of what you sign up for. And it sucks because it's like, it really can be a fun and beautiful thing. And like, you can have these like amazing moments. Like you said, it's the hardest part of the job, but it's also the most rewarding when it works.
Totally. I've had both experiences where, someone just left and or tried to give 2 weeks at a very crazy time, and that didn't work for me. And then I've had the other side where it's like I didn't realize like how appreciative I would have been, and for the team. It's less about me.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
The team.
It fucks all the people that they usually love and are friends with.
And it's like being like, hey, I'm on my way out, I want to support you, like, I can give you 4 months, 4 weeks, I can give you like, or whatever, and I can train this person. Like, I appreciate that so much. I do love you explaining like single line defense, because early on you don't have a lot of money. And so like you can't really hire 100 people everywhere.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, it is so true. One person leaves, I'm like, okay, I'm holding the water here. Another person leaves, I'm holding,
Yeah.
like it's just like the craziest thing. And so being able to have these layers are really important.
Yeah. It takes time.
It
too,
does
and
take
money.
time. Yeah. When do you feel like is an appropriate time to bring on a director for a specific role, and also like an executive team? Like,
Yeah.
what does that look like?
I would say like you don't really need an executive team until you're like, in my opinion, $7 to $10 million in revenue. I think an executive team also, like, what you have to consider is like, I mean, it's tough. It's like, I think that makes the most sense at that time. And then it depends also what kind of CEO you are. Like, if you're a CEO that is like, I mean, again, there's different things of this. I'm running a tech company. I don't have a technical background. You probably need a chief technical officer, like things like that. So there are exceptions to that rule, but I would say you really don't need it until 7 to 10 million in revenue. And then I would say in terms of directors, like, it really depends, because you don't want to hire a director with no team, because then oftentimes directors, when they're coming in, don't either, if you're poaching them from a bigger company, they're used to having a team. Director title, again, titles mean nothing anymore, but directors usually direct a team. Managers usually manage a person. So like if a director's coming in and is like, who am I delegating to versus I'm doing everything, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'll do two things. I'll hire a director and then I let them hire their team. So that way it feels like very cohesive, very like, kind of easy to transition. And then other times I want to hire someone maybe a little junior, because I want them to be able to maybe work into that director role and prove themselves. So it's like a tough decision, like, in that way. Because I think sometimes it's like a title is just a title and a salary. It depends on the person.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It kind of is like it's an interesting question.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to like just audit, what do you need to get done?
Yeah.
What are the areas that are really, really important
for you? Be careful with titles, because what can happen, and this was like something I learned too, is like if you let someone in and they're like, oh, I really want to be director. And let's just say they aren't a director based on their experience or their qualifications or whatever. But you're like, I really want them, and like I'm just gonna give them a director title because like it is what it is. It sets up the org for failure longer term, because like they're not ready to be a director yet. So when you actually get a real director in and they see this director, they're like, I'm then a VP.
Yeah.
If this person's a director, I'm a VP. So that it sets up the internal org for failure. What it also does is when they go when they're like, okay, I don't like it here, and like maybe I'm struggling because I'm not a director, I'm going to go to interview at another place, and they're going to get a higher salary because they have a director title at your company. So whatever company's interviewing them is going to say, oh, director title, you're probably, I don't know, whatever, 150 to whatever kind of salary. So that's the range you're going to get it. And they're just going to leave you. They're going to basically title jack you and go in, get the title, and then leave you, which happened a bunch of times for us too. And I was like, and then I'd see them go to that company and then leave again, because it's like, again, they're not set up for success because they're not directors.
Yeah. And I think they're not set up for success because they're not going to meet your expectations as a director and as a senior. Like, I think there's times that someone is given a senior title, you're expecting senior experience, senior work. And when you don't get that, it's kind of on you because you gave them that title. You know what I mean?
Totally.
I do think that when you are planning, it's important to think forward, right? And hire for where you're going, not just where you are, which can be very scary because you're not there yet. But I do think that that's really important. Let's talk about culture and kind of like, how do you build trust within your team? How do you build handing off and delegating? What are some things that you did?
I mean, it's so hard because it was such a different world because everything was in person.
Yeah.
So I think like now it's like, I can't even imagine. But I think like for us, it was like, we were together all the time, like in the office, team meetings, team happy hours. So I think the dynamic is so different in that way. I would also say like, in terms of like delegation and trust and things like that, I am like very much I'm really good. And I would tell this to people, like, my love language is lists and like checked boxes. So employees that would really like lean into that and be like, here's everything I got done. Here's my remaining questions for you. Get it to me in 5 minutes. obsessed.
Yeah.
Like I was like, you are my dream. Like, oh, I'm coming to the table, bringing you proactively like what I need from you. I think that for me was really good. I think people who were kind of waiting for me to give them direction like did not do well because I was just like I had no time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think like at the end of the day, like you reward people based on, you know, and I think also I was like very transparent about like the business and the success and like did this work, what didn't work. We did like, you know, these sort of state of the unions around the success of events, the success, what was a win, what was a fail, like what went wrong, what could we have done better. And I think like that brings people into the fold in a way where they feel like, oh, I have a voice at the table. I think one of the things that was always challenging was like everyone would just be like, we need more people. And it was just so hard because it was like, again, you're an events business. You don't know what revenue's coming in when. And like, you know, I was always solving for that with like freelancers and things of that nature. But I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to like positive reinforcement, role clarity, them being very clear on their roles and responsibility, and putting into place good managers because you're not going to be able to do it all as CEO. Like, yes, everyone wants to hear a good job from their CEO, but you don't actually know what they're doing. So I think putting in place a good team around you is also important.
100%. I love all of that. And I think that like delegating in general can be very, very hard, but it is so important because you're going to cap out and you cannot scale when you're doing every single thing. Yeah, no, that's a very, very good advice. I do think in the remote world, it is definitely harder to build culture. And I think some ways that we do this is like, again, we're very collaborative. Slack always helps in terms of just like, even like jokes and humor throughout the day, I feel like keeps the team going. We do our weekly calls that connects. The team does their own thing, like happy hours, virtual happy hours. They do their own meetups, which is really cool. But I do think that like, just like incorporating like humor and personal touches throughout the time is really important. I like sprinkle in Starbucks gift cards or like, you know, like little treats as like if you were in the office, like we would get coffee, right? And so what's the difference is like sending gift cards. So it's different in a virtual world for sure. Yeah, so I think like in the remote world, it's just a bit harder to like maintain that culture. I will tell you, like as someone that is hiring, I do all these interviews, and one of the questions that I'm constantly getting is like, what's work-life balance at your company? And it's interesting to me because, and I answered it on this last call, I was like, well, I believe as the CEO that it's not my responsibility how you manage your personal life. That's not my business, right? My business is to run a successful business, to hire the right people in the right roles. And I went on and at first she was like, what? Like, I think it kind of took her by surprise because I do think some people like are just a bit BS where it's like, oh, we balance this and here's the things that we do. It's not my responsibility. And so the examples I gave is like, I'm a mom. I do pick up and drop off. I'm at every field trip. I do practices, especially if I'm in town. Every single practice, every single game. I'm volunteering at fucking tech class. Like you name it, I'm involved. But I also might open my computer at 9 o'clock or I'm up at 5 a.m. Like it's just a different world where I feel like when you were 100% in person, like you didn't have that much autonomy.
Well, the idea of her work from home was crazy. It was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But I do think where I get a little bit more flexibility is like, yeah, like listen, you're gonna have doctor's appointments, your kids are gonna have things. Just be transparent about it. Be like, hey,
100%.
I'm gonna be offline for the next 2.5 hours. My kids recital, whatever. Like, I'll be, you know, and I'll get my work done.
Yeah.
I'm just like, if you get your work done, all the flexibility in the world,
100%.
like in my mind.
I used to tell our sales girls, like, if you can close $4 million with 2 calls a week, let's fucking go. I don't need you to have 100 calls a week. Like at the end of the day, we just have to hit our goals.
Yeah.
And that's all you need to do. You know what I mean? Like, and you figure out how to do that.
Some people like are really good in the morning. Some people are really good at night. Like everyone's different in their work style. And yes, that can be very complicated when you have a bigger team, especially because it's like, where's this person? Especially West Coast, East Coast was always challenging. Yeah. But I think at the end of the day, I'm like, if you are putting in the output, I'm fine. Like, again, like if I'm getting the graphic design thing, again, when it's due and it looks good and it comes in at midnight, like, I don't give a shit. Like, do your work. You know what I mean? But I think, like, again, it's about communicating. I think it's when people are trying to be like, okay, well, I'm just going to go try and do this, but I'm not going to tell her I'm going to be offline. Like, it's like, no, just like we're all humans here trying to figure it out. Like,
totally.
You know.
Yeah. And I am a bit old school where it's like, you, especially as a salaried employee, like, I'm expecting full time. You know what I mean?
Oh, for
so,
sure.
like,
Yeah.
That's like I don't know why. And that's a common question that I get. And I do think that, like, for the people listening, I'm sure they get that in interviews. Like, it is a very common thing more than ever. And I'm always just curious of, like, what are you trying to do during the full-time job that you feel like it's like so important? On the flip side, I do think it's a very privileged way of thinking because I've only had a really amazing work-life culture like at Yahoo. People would leave halfway through the day, go get their kids, and then log off later. It was a very common thing. We always had a hybrid
But that's corporate
model.
culture too. When it's so big, like you can afford that.
Right. It's so different for a startup.
Yeah.
No, I was always very curious on kind of how you felt like about that, and also curious if, like, did you get those questions during interviews?
I would say yes, and I think I was like I was like brutally honest. I was
good.
I just was like I don't have it. Like we're a startup, we're all hands on deck. I was like, we work hard, we have fun.
Yeah.
Like that's what it is, and especially at that time because we were doing so many events. So it's like if you don't love events, like. All good. But then like at the same time, I remember we had this like senior director of accounts who was like not a big events girly, whatever, amazing at her job. But like she came from corporate and she was very structured about her life and very disciplined, but she got her fucking job done. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to let this go because like it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't, have to be in that kind of thing. I think where it gets like tricky is when everyone on your team has a certain work ethic and someone is operating a little differently outside of that. I think, again, and there's nothing wrong with that person. There's nothing wrong with these people. It's just like those two things don't work because there becomes animosity within the group. So it's challenging. I mean, I think like, again, when anyone's or interviewing at a startup small business, it doesn't matter if you're venture backed or not. Like the expectation when you're 1 to 2 years into the business is like, it's all hands on deck. We're growing at all costs, like not all costs, but like we're growing like as quickly as possible. Yeah. Now we're also humans and need to figure out these things. But I think it's like, it is a very different experience than a corporate job where, you're employee one of 50,000, like.
Totally. Completely different. Well, I think overall the takeaway is teams are hard. Managing people are hard. Hiring people is hard. It's always hard. You don't need the perfect org chart from day one, and you will learn along the line. And you're going to have different seasons. You're going to have busy seasons and slow seasons, but you're going to figure it out along the way, and you just got to get the right people in. And yeah, that's it.
Great.
All right. Well, that's it for this episode. We'll talk later. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Work Party. If you like what you heard, follow, leave a review, rate the pod, or slide into our DMs.
Check out the different ways you can create and cultivate on our website, createcultivate.com. From retreats and masterminds to our summits and festival.
We have different experiences to support you through your entrepreneurial journey from launch
to legacy.
Follow us at Create Cultivate on all platforms, and don't forget, work hard.
Party on.
Please note that this episode may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for products and services. Individuals on the show may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to in this episode.